on this journey together. Okay, I hear the recording is in progress. Thank you very much. So we will embark on a journey together. I will show you a study I had the pleasure to make with a day center group of people with cognitive disabilities in an age range from 36 to 60 years and a homogeneous group, so equally divided into 4 men and 4 women. And we will try, I will defend the thesis that it is possible to move away from a text-centric focus on simplification, that we need, I will argue I will make a point of changing the metaphor from simplification, from translation to dialogue with final addressees of simplified text material. And we will try to see how figurative language learning, while many times posited as a critical point in textual comprehension by people with intellectual and cognitive disability, it is difficult, but it is possible to somehow change it. We try to intervene in a way that makes it possible to change it. So we try to elicit speech production. We try to elicit speech production, and we tried to not only understand figurative language, so try to obviously record any progress in their understanding of figurative language learning, but also we arrived to a point where they were able to produce. So they did it spontaneously. They used themselves figurative language. So let's start. Can you see my presentation? Can you see my PowerPoint
Yes,
here?
yes.
Okay, perfect. So it's okay. You see it moving. It says connect, and a speech bubble appears, and 2 people that are together. So this visual is meant to express the idea that language is, at the end of the day, something that should connect each other. So why are we taking the final addressees of simplified text, of simplified language varieties out of the equation? Why are we dictating simplification? Why are we not asking for actual feedback? Some people are doing it and they're having the best results. So I see linguistic simplification as a means to achieve empowerment and self-determination, of course, because if we don't know what the objectives are, if we don't know what the complex communicative needs are, then how are we supposed to cater to the needs? So in this study, I try to evaluate the impact of co-authorship. So from recipients to co-authors in the co-design process, in the participatory approach, and in the drafting of the final materials under the supervision of an expert-led process. So we need both. We need the addressees, and we need somebody that knows the literature and knows the best practices. So this was the rationale of the study. And of course, I try to focus not on figurative language, but more on the self-efficacy of addressees and their ongoing meaning making while we were drafting together the text. So this is an important shift from doing it afterwards or asking their perceived efficacy in understanding the text afterwards is somehow different. They cannot really express their voice. They cannot really take a stance when we ask them afterwards, did you understand it? Yeah, more or less. Okay, no, we want to draft it together, and I want to see what they mean, how they reflect on things, and if they have any question, they can ask while the text is being drafted. So here again, participants to focus group cycle. We did the cycle of focus groups, and now we will see later on, we will see the data on the longitudinal shifts there were, and they are very interesting. So 8 participants in a familiar environment. It was the day center. They actually, they are in the day center every day, so they know the people. The surroundings were familiar. So I wanted to really see if I wanted the actual experience of seeing how they react in a familiar environment, because I didn't want to feel I didn't want them to feel they are under examination. So this is another variable I didn't want in the equation. Okay, so figurative language. Figurative language in order to understand figurative language, it entails a certain degree of abstract thinking. And abstract reasoning and the theory of mind proved several times critical. And many times I was faced with literal interpretations of questions. So in the act of asking, how would you reformulate this line? Okay, I always said, my opinion is not important. I want to hear from you. So I would ask, okay, I wrote it down like this. How would you write it down? And they would say, they would reply with a pen. I would write it down with a pen. So there is a certain degree of literal decoding of my question. So it is indeed an initial obstacle. Okay, so this is a trait that you can find in different groups of people with neurodevelopmental conditions. I want to say it right away. Many of the, many participants didn't have an exact diagnosis. So they would say, I had some I received special education in school. So they themselves didn't have exact data on what diagnosis on their condition. So this is probably a limitation of the study, but it makes also the implications relevant for a broader range of people with cognitive disabilities, adult people with cognitive disabilities. Okay, so let's move on. Here, an important thing is that, as you can see here, there are some square brackets in the picture. So this is practically the flow chart of the co-adaptation and co-design process. I used thematic analysis by using MaxQDA. So I recorded the sessions, and then I took pictures of the whiteboard because I wanted the participants to interact in a way that mirrors their understanding of texts. I didn't want them to fake any interactions. I didn't ask for a uniform feedback. I wanted something that mirrors their understanding and their capabilities. So people that wanted to read aloud were allowed to. People that chose not to read aloud, it was fine, and they could draw. If they didn't have matching verbal processing capabilities, they could just draw. They could visualize the idea, okay, their extractive meaning. So what they had in mind, they could draw it. So I wanted to draw on universal design for learning principles and of participatory approach. So here, as you can see, there are 28 occurrences of co-design in the session, because they took pleasure in just simply learning how to use new devices. Okay? So they didn't know. Yes, I didn't use. I used a computer, but I used to also use a projector. So they never saw something like that. So they took pleasure in getting to know, of course, new people, interacting in a new way. And also the genre, the text genre, came to be came to be something very interesting because I saw a direct correlation of text genre. So if we were talking about something more fun, or we were talking about literary texts, it increased significantly positive interactions within the group. Whereas if we were talking about more abstract things or abstract reasoning, there were less occurrences of positive interactions within the groups. And of course, you could see some avoiding, some attitudes that expressed avoidance or withdrawal. And at the same time, when they initially, in the initial stage, when they voiced an opinion, they at the same time somehow added hedging, linguistic hedging, to sort of taking a stance, but at the same time mitigating the strength, their illocutionary strength of what they said, so as to mitigate the risk of being unrelatable or wrong. And here it's important to note that I always said here 8 occurrences that there are no wrong opinions. I wanted their opinion. Every opinion is good, and I'm here for this. I'm here for your opinion. So what happened was basically I simplified the material based on best practices and on the state-of-the-art literature. And here also you can already see there are 130 instances of co-authorship. And I included under this thematic analysis as co-authorship role when they would ask, what do you mean? Or could you change the size of the text? Or could you explain it? Or can I visualize it? And here I wrote down some quotations. Here, for example, my voice are my emotions. This is a quotation that I took to be as indicating a growing self-efficacy. Okay, so I voice my emotions. I have voice. I want to be acknowledged. I see that you are acknowledging always my interventions, so I can finally contribute with my thinking, with my emotions. Okay, and then also here I have another quotation. It's in Italian. Le foto le capisci meglio. Photographs were taken as a thematical anchor to set the tone, to set the scene of the text, and then I could move on with more abstract depictions, such as pictograms. But photos were deemed to be especially important at the beginning of a text. Okay, here. Okay, so I also wanted to see, as you can see, there are some square brackets in the quotations, and this is because I observed a recurring pattern wherein their speech followed a cumulative progression. So they would use short, juxtaposed main clauses that often represented fragmented thoughts. So as a sort of cautiously expressing their opinion in the initial stage. So their utterances frequently featured ellipses, and they expected me to fill in for their missing information, where key contextual information was omitted. Okay, so I used to triangulate the recordings with a logbook that I was writing down in the logbook every session. I would write down observational notes. I was using memos. So as a means of reflexivity, okay, to use in an ethnographical approach, a constructivist approach, where I would somehow limit my biased perception through reflexivity, and this was a means that I used to mitigate this risk. Okay, so conversely, instances of more complex syntactic structures, such as cataphora or the use of reflexive verbs, were notably rare and appeared only in a few participants towards the end of the study. To ensure the full semantic intent of these elliptical statements, I captured in the coding process, I often needed to include missing information within square brackets as shown in the figure. So now you have all the means to interpret the figure. And you see simplified materials went through co-authorship role. We then went on to negotiate meaning. So I would allow for how can I say? I would allow for negotiation by reformulating, for instance, what I wrote down, and they would ask, and so we went on. There was an iterative process. Here you can see it goes on with iterative feedback process, and the act of merely listening to their voice made the participants say, leggo materiale semplificato con più voglia. I am more willing to read this material now that I know that you are trying to incorporate my view, my take on this material that is meant for me at the end of the day. Okay, so then we went on to ask for reformulations in their own words, not only words, as I said before, they could also draw, or they could just express themselves. So in this study, there was this part of multiple means of expression. Okay, this is part of the UDL framework. Then I went on to acknowledge every time, even if they didn't understand what they meant, I acknowledged and appreciated participants' contribution. So as to fuel their self-efficacy process. And then we went on to negotiating again meaning, again feedback, and this would end in the co-adapted material. Then we would go on and draft the final version. Okay. In this process, I was able also to gather data on usability elements. So people with low vision, they often are asked for all caps letters, which challenges frequently stated rules-based guidelines that are in many different guidelines. Okay, so they often say don't write all caps, and they specifically asked for all caps, and it had a great impact on their perceived self-efficacy. As a matter of fact, these people that saw their difficulties bridged the gap in their capability to to extract meaning from a text, bridged by this intervention. Then at the end, they preferred the label easy to understand, whereas other people that didn't see the same impact by an intervention, they went on saying it is important to note that this is simplified language, not easy to understand. This is about their perception, not about their actual competences. Okay. Okay, very good. Let's move on. So it is a limited size, it is a limited sample, but it allowed for in-depth data collection. So I could write down notes on their shared understandings, and of course look at their process, how they could construct meaning. I always elicited their ongoing line of thought. I got some insights on how they construct meaning, what is important to them. And we would then change together, for example, the color of the text. We didn't use white pages. We always looked for a color that would improve the contrast, and we would we would together discuss what the best font is, for example, and we would discuss visual cues also. So this made me think that comprehensibility isn't just something inherently characterized by the text in itself. So we will go on and then see what I what I drew as a conclusion. Okay.
Gianluca, I hate to interfere, but you have 1 minute left.
1 minute left. Oh, that is bad.
Well, you can abuse it a little bit, but just for you to be.
Okay. Then I will move on. Okay. What I did basically was this. I challenged the idea, the unwritten idea, that it is too difficult for people with cognitive disabilities to engage with texts that have that that has to do with emotions and humorous jokes also. Why are we not testing this? It is underrepresented. So I wanted to dignify participants by using Dante, which is not a simple thing to do. So I mean, I wanted to foster intellectual agency by deconstructing this myth. Okay, and I wanted to push the boundaries by empowering participants to express themselves. Why are we not asking, how do you speak? What is your speech production like? Do you use reflexive verbs? Do you enjoy listening to Dante? Or do you like humorous jokes? What type of text genre do you prefer? I think this is a underrepresented thing in literature. So here you can have a quick insight on the improvement in figurative language, understanding, and perceived self-efficacy gains. Here, as you can see, I noted also when I afterwards understood that I pushed a little bit too much their decision-making skills as guided answers, as a negative code. So still as a means to mitigate this risk of biased interpretation. Okay. So just a word cloud to represent the things more important in the study, that is their voice and their self-efficacy. A person said, I feel like being under the sun. I feel like being at the beach, you know, under the sun. I feel better because somebody is really noting down what my emotions are like, what they feel. And what is it here? Here, the most important thing to make a point about their self-efficacy gain is this. We looked at the born accessible text that I wrote down ad hoc for this situation, where voice was taken as a means to express oneself. So the voice was the medium through which they could represent themselves in this dialogue of co-adaptation, not translation. So super semiotic co-adaptation, because the target text had involved more semiotic channels than the source text. So this is what a person came up with at the advanced stage of co-adaptation. I want then ask you whether this is not important information. So this person said, noise is when you have emotions but you cannot express them. Absence is when you don't have emotions. And I think there's a certain degree of complex figurative meaning understanding and production in this. So then in the Q&A session, you could give, yeah, maybe you can share your reflections on this. Okay, as I said, I already said everything. Yes, and it has, of course, important implications for the future. But what I want to conclude here is that we need to make a shift in our focus on simplification and really give voice to the participants and seeing it as a dialogue. I always repeated voice because we need to see it as a dialogue so they can really feel their part of this process, where we are not professionals still. We are guessing. We are just basing, we are working based on best practices. Okay, so I really hope we can replicate this with larger cohorts and, of course, more sectorial. If we have data about their diagnosis, then we can also draft a better study, a more goal-oriented study. Okay, thank you very much. I hope we can create truly inclusive materials with this. And the study, of course, I looked also for other things. For example, we created together a flexible strategy for gender awareness in the study, and I couldn't wrap it around just in one paper. But thank you very much again for listening, and I will be here if you have any questions.